Hey everyone, it's Vlad. We're back for part 3 of my World of Chaos After Action report, playing as Benin in this game. And we left off here, right after Fernando Po stabbed my alliance. We're basically up to the end of Year 6 here, and I think we should be able to get out the rest of the game in this last part here. Okay, so just a tiny bit of a recap here. Po has just gone from 3 to 6. And at the same time, Ben and I stabbed Western Death Star, and Meme stabbed Hawara. These are the big things for our alliance. Ixus moving into Bunyoro here was part of the agreed dot swap, because TCL were getting into a couple of dots over here. Last important thing to note, I think, from this phase that I didn't quite cover last time is Banda has been accepted back into the Congo line at this point, and this will be important for reasons that we'll see soon. EG have taken Cairo, which is nice. I think Cairo retreats into Tripoli here, so Cairo does actually take Tripoli and sits in Hogar here. Okay, first thing to happen after Poe's stab from a GP perspective is Great Ardra and Belem immediately split off and they join Win Hayek's alliance here, the B-Sticks, with a whole lot of these different players in South America. So Great Ardra, who has a dot over here still, makes a deal with Fernando Po, and Po says, I'm going to walk out of Moritstad, you'll get it back, but I'm going to take Great Ardra. And there's no way that Ardra is going to be able to protect Great Ardra, so this makes sense from Ardra's perspective. Ardra was a great person to play with, great neighbor. I think Ardra is directly the reason that Fernando Po was not able to kill me in Year 1. So I loved playing with them. I loved the negotiations we had. They're a really chill guy. So Great Ardra leaves the guinea pigs. Belem leaves the guinea pigs, and they join B-Sticks. Also, at the same time, a few other people are trying to talk about, we're looking and seeing if we can get everyone to pile on Po, because Po has just suddenly, we'll go to the next board, clean map before retreats, if it loads. Po is now the biggest nation in Africa, at 6 dots, by far, is the biggest nation here. So where a few people are trying to talk and see if we can organise a coalition and get Western Death Star to come in, get EG to come in, get TCL to come in, and we'll all take all these dots in the middle and kill the person who stabbed. Because a lot of precedents were set in Africa that people who stabbed their alliances would be punished. Even with the Banda stab on us, precedents were set that people would be punished for stabbing other people. Meme immediately made a deal with EG and said, sorry, I'm going to give you guys Hawara back, and I'm going to try and get Kanem Bornu back, because Meme sentimentally really liked the idea of having Kanem Bornu. So immediately Meme not only gives the dot back, but ends up joining Evergreen. I tried for a little bit to see whether Meme would want to join with us in killing Po and remain part of the alliance. My earliest plan was that the rest of GP would stick together in Africa and kill Po. Basically, me, Meme, Ixus, and Ben. Didn't come to fruition because Meme split off and went into Evergreen. And, I mean, that's the right decision for Meme to make. It was, he was immediately accepted in, which is quite funny now that the two people who stabbed EG, first Hawara in Year 1, and now Meme right now, as soon as they stab EG, they get accepted into EG. So quite a funny assimilation kind of situation going on over there. And the situation's very interesting for everyone else. So over here, Ben's not online a lot immediately after this stab, and I'm talking to people, and I'm trying to talk to Western Death Star about what might be happening over here. And my plan, because I've just declared war on Western Death Star with my moves here, and I've been looking at this war, I've earned goodwill with Ligma, I would quite like to keep working with Ligma, and I thought that maybe Tasnica would want to stab the rest of his alliance. And there's scope to do so. Tasnica and Ouagadougou had been at odds earlier, and I thought, how about I make the proposal to Tasnica that I'm going to come back and deal with Po, he's going to go and stab the rest of the alliance, because I don't have a lot of reason to trust Tasnica here, because I've just stabbed the Death Star. Tasnica's been doing a lot of press for the Death Star. I manipulated Tasnica into leaving Timbuktu open, and so if he says, "Oh no, I'll leave you alone to go and kill Po," I'm not going to trust that. He's going to walk straight into Timbuktu, and so I thought I might be able to get Stabby Tasnica out and get Tasnica to start stabbing people, for me to start attacking Po, and the two of us would grow in inland Africa, because I thought Tasnica's been looking for an inland Africa alliance at the moment. There's dots here for Tasnica to move towards. He's been manipulating Timbuktu all game. Ouagadougou's going to be wary, but I mean, I don't think Ouagadougou... I mean, maybe I pull Ouagadougou in to attack Po and promise him Great Ardra or something like that. Because I have no idea what Ben's thinking at this stage. But the way this kind of all unfolds, and this is a very weird kind of couple of phases of the game for me here, because both Fernando Po and Western Death Star were trying to get me on side. And Po was saying, well, how about actually we continue going this way, because the coalition's clearly not going to happen against me, so you should help me attack Western Death Star. Western Death Star is also saying, hey, if you move east and attack Fernando Po, you can keep 2 dots, and once you get into House of States, we'll take Timbuktu back. And kind of similar to a meme deal, maybe there's scope for me to be joining Western Death Star. At the same time, Western Death Star and Fernando Po are in talks to maybe kill me. So all 3 of the kind of points of this triangle here are talking to the other people. And it was very... No one was saying, hey, you guys are exploring 2 options, that's two-faced. We knew it was shopping season. We knew, like, okay, everyone's exploring every option, let's see what the deals proposed are. I looked at this situation, and I think there'd been some discussions. I went to bed, I woke up the next morning, and suddenly both sides, it looked pretty clear that Po was not going to work with Western Death Star, and I thought, oh, so I've kind of got the best of both worlds here. I was still worried that if I, tried to leverage the situation too much, that the two of them would just go, okay, fuck Vlad, and kill me. And I was kind of... Western Death Star was saying, hey, the point I was trying to make to them was, I can do this, but you need to leave Timbuktu alone until I get into House of States. And if Po's full building, that could take quite a while. So Tasnica seemed to be willing to offer this. I still didn't trust Tasnica fully at this stage. Why would you? I mean, he's a good player, and I just stabbed them. So Tasnica would meet basically no clapback if Tasnica immediately just walked into Timbuktu and stabbed me. He'd just say, yeah, well, Vlad stabbed us. So, and he'd have justification in doing this. So I was always wary. Ouagadougou had just seen me stab them and was really, really furious with me. So Ouagadougou was less welcoming in chat than Tasnica in terms of the ideas of me possibly joining them. I was saying to Fernando Po, like, I'll join you guys, but you guys need to give me House of States back so I can keep a dot, because I'm probably going to lose Timbuktu here. So there's a lot of things going on. And my third option at this stage was, if the two of them tried to eat me, was that I could join Ligma. I'd made a lot of friends up here, particularly the Don. He came out in press and said, I really appreciate what you did in stabbing WDS here. It's going to make our war a lot better. And the Don went on record and said that Nigeria, his survival is one of Ligma's top priorities right now. So I'm thinking, this is fucking brilliant. This is looking really good. But the problem is that, yes, there's a Ligma troop adjacent to me, but it's Mamluks, and I don't trust Mamluks. Mamluks who was Cairo. I don't trust Mamluks at all this game. Mamluks has been unreliable, has done NMRs, has been engaged in press fights with, first of all, Agadez, and then secondly, me. And I don't trust this unit here. And I am worried if I join Western Death Star and move backwards, that Mamluks is going to help Fernando Po against me. Particularly if Fernando Po makes a deal with Meme, pieces out, and says, I'm going to give you back Kanem-Bornu. Po might just support himself into Agadez with Mamluks' help. And I'm really worried about this, that if these guys manage to take Agadez off me while I'm trying to move east, Western Death Tasnica could easily just walk into Timbuktu and I'd be straight up dead. And that would solve the problem of what's Nigeria going to do, because I'd be cleanly dead. And I was really, really worried that if I joined Western Death Star, this unit here in Hogar would mess with me. On the other end, what I started looking at was, I think I'm actually more likely to grow if I move this way. And if I keep warring Western Death Star, then maybe this unit here in Hogar can support me in Timbuktu and stop Tasmika from being able to support himself into Timbuktu. So I made a big mistake. And I came out, and while everyone was weighing up options, I declared publicly in press that I was going to throw in my lot with Fernando Po. And immediately Ouagadougou and Tasmika were like, okay, fuck you. And you know what? Fair enough. Like, they were talking to me in press about giving me a second chance for me to immediately apologise for my stab and turn back around. I'd had good relations with Tasmika in talking about the whole Ligma situation. I'd had good relationships with Ouagadougou early in the game. Less so recently, but it was certainly strong early. So both of them were pretty upset that I decided to throw in my lot with Fernando Po. And the reasons I did this, number one, I was worried that these two were going to, if I didn't make up my mind, these two parties would just decide to eat me. So I thought, I'm going to declare myself for one party and show them, actually, I'm going to be loyal to you, which means that Fernando Po won't want to work with WDS to kill me. Of course, WDS tried to propose this, but the other thing was that I had thought I could organise a coalition on Fernando Po, because we'd just all been stabbed, and I thought the most noble thing for me to do now in the game, and there would be dots available for me, would be to get Meme, get Ixis, get TCL, get Ben, and we're all going to walk up and we're all going to kill Fernando Po's dots. And I was talking particularly to Benguela at this time and to Dyer over here. And the three of us, I mean, we were a real trio that had been involved in a lot of the negotiations about killing Pirate Partly. And I thought, even though I've just done a big stab and my alliance is crumbling, I've got goodwill in EG and I've got goodwill in TCL. And even if that's just from having good relations, where even if we were, you know, negotiating fiercely about who should get what dot and all being very, you know, self-serving in what we asked for, I did feel like I had good relationships with Benguela, with Debre Bihan. And I tried to see whether all of these parties would join in a coalition. And EG, I think Debre was kind of saying, yeah, I think this might be something we do. I think Meme's going to be moving towards Kanem Bornu. And I thought, yeah, but that's part of a deal he's already made with Poe. And TCL didn't commit against Poe. And TCL had a few different things going on here, because they were moving on Madagascar. They were attacking Uni, I think, at this time. Cape Coe's just taken Fort Dauphin, and Benguela's just taken Sakalava. So TCL had a few other things going on, and I don't think they wanted to commit on the GB dots, or at least not publicly. And it was quite annoying for me. And I looked at this and I thought, okay, TCL are not going to attack Fernando Po. We're not going to get this coalition going, so I'm going to throw in my lot with Fernando Po. And I really do think that the main reason I did this was this Mamluks army in Hogar, which is staring at me right here, and is staring at me right here as well. This army here complicated a lot of things, and I thought I need to make a position where this army is more likely to support me in Timbuktu against Western Death Star, because Mamluks, I mean, at the very least, Ligma will be saying to Mamluks, don't do anything to hurt Vlad, because they want me to keep the war up so that they can keep marching down. Another option that comes up here, though, is the idea that maybe WDS and Ligma will peace out if WDS don't kill me. So that's another thing I had to consider, was, do I side with WDS here? And I think it really boils down to, if it was Timbuktu on my border, maybe I do, but I don't trust this guy at all. And he has a history of walking into other people's dots and then trying to justify it in post. And he didn't get away with it in year one. But I mean, he's just walked straight into Ualata here and taken a dot off Timbuktu. I think there was something going on with Canaries, but Timbuktu's gone down to 1 here. Mali's been able to grab a dot, and I don't believe Mali faces any repercussions for walking into Ualata. And Tasmika's managed to get back up to 2. I think he's going to start taking control of the alliance again. I've been one of the most staunchly anti-Mali players on the board. I need to keep going, and I'd made my bet. I moved into Busa when I didn't need to commit as hard as I did. I could have, moved to House... I mean, of course I should have moved to House of States. I should have gone, well, Even if it's just a bounce with Poe here, it's going to be fine. And I can move into Timbuktu, stay here, sit here, if get my third build, move that army out, or move Agadez out or something. But I moved into Busa because I was like, well, we'll get into Busa, we'll get into Adja, and it will be a super fast attack, and they'll be fucked because this area is so vulnerable. But I've committed, and my armies are here, so I don't think it's the wrong play necessarily for me to commit this way. But the way I went about it was bad, because about 6 hours after this all, I've mentioned that Benguela was at least in press not committing to the coalition, and a lot of the chatter in TCL at the time was that they didn't think attacking Poe was necessarily in their best interest, and there were a couple of key players who disagreed with this point of view. One of them was Banda, who had just rejoined the Congo line, and Banda's a very strong presser, and Banda was saying, are you guys looking at a different board than I am? Like, look at all these dots if we just move on GP, and particularly move on Ixis here. And I was kind of wondering, are TCL going to try and bring Ixis in? Because basically through my negotiations, Ixis got up to 3 dots with not a lot of press. And so I thought maybe Ixis will be used as a TCL front to move that way, or TCL's going to move on Ixis and on Poe or something. Banda really wants TCL to move up towards Poe and start swinging the tide of things after I've pledged myself to Poe. And Banda was trying to use the anti-Vlad propaganda to move TCL up this way. The other player who really wanted to move this way was Soyo, and Soyo had substituted by this point, and the original Soyo was part of Western Drift. I think Soyo at this stage is still down here in Rio Grande Rise. But Soyo subbed out, and Shredge came in as a Soyo player, and immediately was saying, yeah, I think we've got a really good attack on GP here. And I mean, this has been the case all of the game, but the close friendship with Mabanza and with original Soyo early was that this whole area around here was going to be completely DMZ'd, and we weren't going to attack Sao Tome, we weren't going to attack St. Helena, we're all going to be friends. But new Soyo comes in and is like, what the fuck am I doing in South America? And you know what? Fair enough. Probably should have moved to South Atlantic Ocean this phase, and didn't. But yeah, Soyo's saying, hey, we should come back. Poe's fleet's all the way fucking over here. GP's fucked if we attack them navally. And I've looked at my void about what I was thinking at this time, and certainly at the time I felt like there were a couple of players trying to get a rise out of me and trying to pester me in press. With reflection, I don't think that was necessarily the case. I think that Banda was just trying to say, we've got an attack here, we need to look at this. And I was thinking, well, I'm here with Poe, who hasn't done a lot of press in this game, but also hasn't done none. I need to assert myself in press again and try and make GP a legitimate force again. And so I, in press, was desperately trying to get people to stab. And I was saying to Tasmika, no, you should go stab man. You should stab Western Death Star. You should kill people. You should kill Wagadugu with me, and we'll all mutually grow. And I was trying to say to people like, meme, continue stabbing EG. We'll keep going on this. And I had what can be best described as a bit of a crash out in E-Hall. And Dyer and I talk about this in our interview, and I think it's interesting. In the interview, I did the interview a couple of days before these videos, and I didn't really remember this all this much. And I think it's because I was trying to put it out of my mind, because it was not a good moment for me in this game. And I started essentially burning bridges with people by saying, oh, you guys are all being in alliances and nothing's happening in Africa and people are punishing stabs and this is a ridiculous map. And people started turning against me, and it's fair enough. And it was people turning against me who hadn't been against me all game. It was people like Pango. It was people like Mapemba. People like Mabanza started seeing this press from me, and they were all like, okay, Vlad, what the fuck are you doing? And it really turned people against GP. And I felt it happening at the time, and I was really worried because Ben had put out a big post overnight the day before this and had said, hey, Vlad, I want to join with Fernando Poe, and I think we should do this. Because Oh, the bit I forgot to mention was I declared myself for Poe, and then when it looked like the coalition was on, I flipped and I said to Tasnica, okay, sorry for declaring against you. I'm going to accept your deal now, but now I don't have to keep Timbuktu. I'm going to go down to 1 and then get to House Estates. And because I thought that was my only options for survival. And Tasnica said, okay, we'll accept that. You've burnt a bit of goodwill, but I think now you're recognizing the truth of the game. Then Ben does his post overnight and says, we should say fuck you to Africa and we should team up with Poe and continue this war. And I wake up and I say, was this real or was this just a ploy to get Poe not to build a fleet? And Ben says, no, this was real. So yeah, we'll go to builds because it's important. In that Fernando Poe does not build a fleet, and Ben's quite happy about this. And it was after this that Ben was saying, no, Vlad, we should team up with Poe, we should continue attacking Western Death Star. And I flip again on Western Death Star, and I say, no, I'm joining with GP. And at this point, Tasnica and Wagadugu were upset with me when I declared myself first for Poe. I flipped back to them and then betrayed them again by declaring I was working with Poe, and I just played this phase so horribly. I didn't need to do this, and now for sure these guys were never, ever, ever going to trust me again. And so there was no way I was going to be able to do any peace out. I'd burnt all the goodwill. Fernando Poe had not. I was the one who had been flip-flopping, and it was just not well played. I felt this happening, and in my crash out when I was kind of complaining to TCL about, like, no, why the hell would you guys move up here? Like, we should be starting to stab and we should be starting to have some fun in Africa. That these people were turning against me, and I felt it happening, and I was really, really worried I was fucking everything up for Ben in particular, because I mean, Poe had just stabbed. If I was going to ruin things for Poe's game, it doesn't matter all that much to me. He ruined things for my game. It's the game. It happens. But Ben was the person in this game I enjoyed playing with the most. And Ben and I had been tight right from the start. We'd been the two big press people for the original guinea pigs, and we continued managing our respective areas. I was the Africa guy, Ben was the South America guy. And I thought, if I'm fucking everything up for Ben here, this is awful. And I felt it happening, and I needed to close Discord. And I remember saying at the end of it, like, I was talking to Benguela and Banda saying, oh, guys, you shouldn't be burning bridges here. Let's please think about what we can do to bring things back together. And I think Benguela said something like, I don't think it's us who's burning the bridges here. I was like, yeah, fair enough. I am digging myself into a huge fucking hole. And I closed Discord and I went away for a bit. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to do any more damage. And I logged on about 5 hours later. I came on and I made a big post tagging people in and saying, I'm really sorry, guys. I'd had a bad day in real life, and it leaked into my press. And I think people understood it because they were like, yeah, this guy has not been like this all game. People like Debre Birhan and Benguela were like, okay, yeah, that was out of character for Vlad. But I still did damage to our position because people were starting to talk about attacking guinea pigs again. And guinea pigs reformed as Fernando Poe, me, Ben, and surprisingly, Ixis rejoined guinea pigs as well. Because we pointed out to Ixis that some members of TCL were talking about, well, how about we attack Ixis instead of attacking Poe? And Ixis said, oh, well, this is really shit for me. I'm going to join with you guys and defend myself. So Meme was the one that split off. Ardra and Bellum split off, but we kept four of the seven members in GP, and we still controlled a pretty large area. I'm going to show some alliance maps from the era. This is before Fernando Poe's stab. This is the size of guinea pigs. We've got a huge holding over here. Love it. And right after the stab, when Ixis doesn't know what they're doing, I don't know what I'm doing, Ben doesn't know what he's doing, Ardra, yeah, so Meme's already in Evergreen. Ardra and Bellum have joined B-Sticks. That's what all this is. And Poe over here, own alliance. And then after this, here's the next map. And we've reformed guinea pigs. And we've taken all this area back again. And suddenly we're a legitimate force again. But people don't like us because of everything that's just happened. Particularly Western Death Star hate us. And people here are thinking there's some dots here to go for. Particularly Banda was really driving this point, that there are some dots to go for. Yeah, these are the builds here, and at one stage, the other alliances were saying to Poe, like, hey, wave your 3 builds, and we'll leave you alive on 2 dots. And Poe was kind of looking at accepting this, but realized, actually, no, this whole, like, pre-agreeing who's going to get what dot thing is just such bullshit, and we convinced Poe to build. I think Ben was the major player who convinced Poe to build again, and we said, no, we're actually going to do some stuff. We'll give Khan and Bornu back, but we'll take Great Ardra and we'll move west against Western Death Star. And so let's go to the board before moves here. And we managed to stop the Congo line from declaring war on us. I can't remember if it was this phase or the next one, but some members of TCL started saying we need to be invading GP. And as kind of a last resort, I went to EG. I think it was to Wasangali I was talking to at the time, who was never my biggest fan. And I was saying, hey, TCL's talking about maybe warring GP. Do you remember the 3-way pact we had? And in my mind, like, there's no way that pact should have been valid. Like, Poe had stabbed us all, we'd split off. We'd reformed with 4 of the 7 members, but we weren't really the same political entity that we were when we made the coalition against PP. And besides, PP were dead. Gabriel's dead here, and this is all done. And TCL's declaring war on Uni. I don't think EG should have held TCL to this at all, but to my surprise, Makuria, Debray, and Wasangali all say, yes, the pact is valid, and if TCL attack you, we will attack them. And I'm thinking, oh my fucking god, how the hell did we get away with this? And we kind of knew that TCL were going to go for more dots, and that people wanted some of these dots, and Ixis was not a very active player in press here, and some of the players of the game will remember a lot of chat about psychic messages going on to Benguela, where both Fernando Poe and I were talking to Benguela about, well, you know, there is somewhere you could go to get dots, and we're trying to subtly imply, well, you can go and take Ixis's dots, and we're not going to really stop you. But we didn't want to say it out loud, because TCL could say that and then say, hey, Ixis, they're going to kill you, you should attack them. So we had to do it psychically, and a lot of people were trying to guess what we meant, and some people thought we were trying to get TCL to attack Western Death Star. I definitely had been encouraging TCL to attack Western Death Star as well, because I wanted to continue the war. But Fernando Poe and I were talking about selling Ixis out to TCL, and I think Banda knew this, and I think Benguela knew this. Let's look at moves for this phase. What had been stated in press was, let's see, we've got these 3 armies here, and Tasnica stated that he was going to move Mali to Timbuktu. Or, in fact, I think what was stated was that Ouagadougou should tap Busa, so that Mali can move to Timbuktu with support from Ualata, and Mali would get into Timbuktu. Obviously, the issue with this is that if Busa moves to Mali, I take Mali, and yes, I can't defend Timbuktu if Busa is tapped, but I would get into Mali, which would be quite nice, particularly given how vulnerable this area is. Tasnica wasn't going to ever attack from Ualata this phase, because Busa could just move to Mali and cut the support, which wouldn't work at all. And so the moveset I came up with is in defense, because Ouagadougou had stated publicly, I'm moving to Busa. And Tasnica said, I'm going to gunboat my orders. I expected Mali to move to Timbuktu with support, because that would be a guaranteed take, given that. And so I put in the orders, Busa should move to Mali, and Timbuktu should move to Busa, because I would quite like Busa to get into Mali, assuming this happens, and Timbuktu moving to Busa would bounce Ouagadougou out, and I didn't want Ouagadougou's army adjacent to Agadez when all this was happening. I, at the same time, was asking Mamluks, will you support me in Timbuktu? And the Don was saying to Mamluks, support Nigeria in Timbuktu. Because if this happens, then I don't have to do this moveset. I can just order Busa to Mali and support from Timbuktu. And if Mali does the attack, then I get into Mali and dislodge it, because you can't cut support for where you're attacking. So I would have had a really nice line here if Mamluks decided to support me. And Mamluks, about 2 hours before deadline, when I'm still asleep, posts at me and says, hey, Nigeria, do you still want support in Timbuktu? I logged on about an hour before deadline, and I said, yes, I do. And Mamluks never responded. And I was like, Mamluks, are you supporting me? What are you doing? And I never hear from Mamluks up until deadline. And the Don's saying, I've ordered him to support you. He should be supporting you. But I look at this and I think, I don't want to make this moveset because I'm going to get absolutely fucked if Mamluks doesn't support me. And so I decide to input Busa to Mali, Timbuktu to Busa. And let's go to moves. Mamluks moves to Zagawa, as there was a little bit of chatter about this happening, and it was all really annoying. But down here we get a really interesting moveset, because Tasnica did gunboat the orders, and Tasnica, who had heard in press that Ouagadougou was moving to Busa, decided to support Ouagadougou to Busa. And this is uncounterable by me. There's nothing I can do that stops this, because supporting from Timbuktu doesn't work, support's going to be cut. So Ouagadougou decided instead to bounce Po out of Adja, because we knew Po was going to try to move to Adja. And so this whole bounce happens, and Po was moving out of Kanem Bornu to get Meme back into Kanem Bornu. This was all agreed, and it all gets bounced. But I would be fucking furious if I was Tasnica here, because Ouagadougou had said, no, I'm going to move to Busa, and this would have guaranteed them Timbuktu, and there would have been no dot I could take. Because I can't retreat to Adja, I'd have to retreat to Agadez, and Timbuktu is gone. Because there's 3 armies on Timbuktu. So, yeah, sure, Po might be threatening Ouagadougou, some stuff like this might be happening, but it's not looking good for Vlad in this scenario, and I'm the player that Tasnica most wants to kill, and Tasnica is the one that wants to grow the dot, so I imagine Tasnica would have been absolutely furious, and he hid this well in chat. But I haven't read his void yet. They haven't been published. But I want to see what Tasnica thought about Ouagadougou doing this move. Because this really, I mean, I think Tasnica picked the right moveset here. Because this is completely uncounterable again. So the way this all works, it all gets bounced out. I don't move into Busa. And so things stay as they are. Except we now have an army in Ouagadougou. So things are looking quite a bit better here. Except this army's gone. So no longer do Tasnica and Ouagadougou have to factor in that I might be supported by Mamluks, because Mamluks has fucked off. We got armies convoying in, we've got things happening with Cairo over here, we've got a planned bounce and everything to make sure that everyone's behaving and we're all friends, and we've been saying, like, hey, we'll give you Banyoro if you don't keep attacking us, because Ixis is on 3, so Ixis can go down to 2, we'll give that up. It was really weird, because it was me and Po that promised TCL Banyoro, and Ixis didn't fight it. I think Ixis kind of had been resigned to, okay, we're not in a good position here, I'm not going to fight too hard for what I have. But yeah, we were giving up Banyoro, and I think Banda was going to get it, because Banda's on 1 dot at the moment, Zanzibar, and yeah, Meme was a little unhappy that he didn't get into Kanem Bornu, but yeah, I mean, Po didn't break any deals. Po got bounced out, so that's why that didn't happen. Po gets into Great Adja, which is lovely, because Po can support himself into Adja. And Ben has moved to Mandan, which is really nice to be looking at Niani. Cabo Verde got a build out, which is annoying. Cabo Verde gets to possibly bounce Ben out of Niani, but getting into Gold Coast is really nice here, because we've got a bit more protection against all these fleets in the South Atlantic Ocean. We've got Soyo here moving back. This is Niani moving back to the South Atlantic Ocean. So a lot of Western Death Star and TCL are possibly going to start threatening this area. So the 2 fleets sitting in these positions here is really quite nice. I'm going to not talk about too much about the rest of everything going on in Africa, but safe to say the war's still going on between Ligma and WDS up here. There was no peace out. There's not a whole lot more to say, except that TCL keep taking Madagascar, Uni have ceded it, and all that stuff's happening. Okay, let's keep going on to what happens here before fall moves. And this is the situation I find myself in, and I've told Fernando Po, you should support House of States to Adja. That WAG cannot bounce it, and you can get him for free. Now, I have basically a 50-50 guess here, because Mamluks has fucked off to Zagawa. Mamluks is not helping me. And I, of course, in press again was saying, this army is doing nothing. You've got them backing into Cairo. You shouldn't be too worried about this. Come back and help me, because I need it. And I mean, it's kind of a little bit too late at this stage, but if this army here was in Hogarth supporting me, it would have been beautiful. The situation here is still kind of the same with all of this stuff here, and I know it's fall now, so Timbuktu can be taken by force if they want it, but it leaves Mali open, because if Ouagadougou taps Busa and Mali supports into Timbuktu, Timbuktu falls, but I can get in. It can't happen the other way, because again, I can just cut the support from Mali if I want to. So they could do this, but if they were 100% doing this, I can just walk into Mali. So they have another option, which is Mali still moves to Timbuktu, Oualata supports it in, and Ouagadougou covers Mali, so bounces me out of Mali, which would be the guess here. So I basically have to guess, what is Ouagadougou going to do? Because I know that Tasnica is going to order Mali to Timbuktu and support him. And I'm looking at this, it's basically a pure 50-50 guess. It's not quite, because Ouagadougou stated in press, I am going to 50-50 between moving to Mali or Busa. Ouagadougou might have been saying this to try and trick Ben into leaving Cormantin open, because Ben can cover Cormantin easily. Ben, of course, is going to try for Niani. But Ben can move to Cormantin, or Ben can stay still in Gold Coast and do some other stuff messing around with the South Atlantic Ocean. Poe got into the ocean, which is important here, so there's options for Poe to try and do something around here. Ben can try for Niani, but Cabo Verde can cover. I thought there was a non-zero chance that Ouagadougou might try to move to Cormantin. And so basically, in my 50-50 guess, I'm either going to move to Mali or I'm going to support hold. I don't like moving to Ouagadougou here, because in the world where Wag moves to Corm and Ben moves to Corm and bounces, I don't get into Ouagadougou and Mali gets into Timbuktu. So I say, well, if I'm predicting Ouagadougou to move to Mali, I'm going to support hold. And let's go to moves. This is my single favorite move that I did in the entire game. And I thought, if I am support holding myself here in Timbuktu, so Busa supports Timbuktu's hold. This might be a little bit hard to read. You can't cut support against an attack on the province that you're attacking from. So Mali moving to Timbuktu does not cut this support, and Timbuktu is supporting Ouagadougou into Mali. The support is not cut because the attack comes from Mali, not from Oualata, which is really nice here. So I guessed that Ouagadougou was going to move to Mali, not to Busa. It was a pure 50-50 guess. It was lucky, sure. But I also, when I was looking at this, I thought this would be really funny, because Tasnica is quite a dangerous player. And Niani's going to get covered. There's not going to be any retreat to Niani. Someone's going to be moving to Niani. I think Cabo Verde had stated 100% I'm moving to Niani, which would kill Niani if Niani wasn't able to do anything. But Western Death Star had accepted that would be the case. So when I looked at this, I thought I definitely would rather Ouagadougou be at 2 dots than Tasnica, because Tasnica's a player who somehow keeps growing, somehow keeps manipulating people into letting him take their dots. There's Igil here, something's going to happen here, I think. And so I think, well, I'm going to support Ouagadougou in. And it'll make no tangible difference to my defense, except that it's a different player in control of the second army here. But I loved this, because a whole lot of people looked at this and they assumed that Ouagadougou was stabbing Tasnica. And I kept playing it up in press. I was like, wow, finally WDS are stabbing each other. Finally things are happening in Africa. And a whole lot of people in all the public press started believing it. And Ouagadougou was tearing his hair out, like, for fuck's sake, I didn't stab this. And when people said, no, it wasn't a stab, this was arranged, everyone just didn't believe it. And everyone had to keep explaining, no, it was a 50-50 guess, and Nigeria did this to troll Tasnica. Which is exactly the truth of the situation. But it was really quite funny how this all went down. Poe gets into Adja, Poe gets out of Cannon Bornu, Meme gets into Cannon Bornu, and this is never a good spot for me, Meme being in Cannon Bornu, because Cannon Bornu is next to Agadez, and Agadez being vulnerable is really not good. And yeah, look at this shit. Like, Mamluks had said, I'm going to move back to Hoggar and I'm going to support you. And I'm thinking, well, Meme's going to be in Cannon Bornu, so it'll be nice to have some options for bounces in Agadez if I want it. And fucking Mamluks NMRs. Mamluks with all 4 units here does nothing. And I should explain, there was a policy of subbing out anyone who did an NMR. NMR is no moves received, and a whole lot of players had been subbed out of the game for NMRs. Although, importantly, Mamluks had done an NMR earlier in the game and didn't get subbed out because I think he explained himself well. Warsangali also did an NMR at one stage of the game and wasn't subbed out because he explained himself. But at this stage, this is just didn't do any orders, didn't follow what people were saying, and it was really annoying that this happened because Mamluks, again, I've managed to do a 50-50 guess to stay alive in a situation where I didn't really have any right to stay alive, and the reinforcements still don't come. And at this point I'm thinking, okay, like, fuck this guy. He's not going to help me, he's not reliable, I'm never going to trust him ever again. And yeah, so he doesn't come, and I'm still not in a great spot here, because now I've got Meme next to Agataz, and sure, Poe's going to start moving on Ouagadougou. It's looking quite nice. Ben gets bounced out of Niani, doesn't get a build. TCL get into Banyoro. It's not looking great. Dot goes down. There's a whole lot of planned bounces along here. These are all planned, and it's all TCL still saying in public that they aren't attacking us. But this move is one I did not like at all, and I tried in press to get Benguela not to do this move, because I thought there is no way in hell that this fleet is not going to move to Lopez Bay, because we're not in Gold Coast, we can't bounce there. Ouagadougou was never really going to bounce Ben out of Cormantin, so it would have been a bold play by Ben to hold in Gold Coast, but I completely understand why he didn't. I tried to argue to TCL that Angola Basin would be too threatening for us, and they were like, no, but this is our area. Look, it's defending the ban from Soyo. It's nothing to do with you. But, I mean, Lopez Bay is open. TCL are just going to keep taking ground from us. I kind of knew this, but I kind of thought it's not actually me, so I'm not going to fight this too hard. Ben was starting to check out of the game a little bit at this stage. So it was me and Poe doing the bulk of press at this point. Is there anything else interesting in Africa? Not really. I'm going to keep speeding through this because I'm starting to have much less of a global view on the game. My view is very much now my area and not looking at everything else. Here's the builds. And this is one of the really funny things that happened here, is that Ouagadougou tried to build in Mali. And Ouagadougou already had an army in Mali. So me supporting Ouagadougou into Mali worked better than I ever could have possibly imagined, because suddenly there's no army here. And it's now a 2v2 here. And it looks really, really good for me. But we've got to look at this. St. Louis builds an army. I think there was a disband somewhere, or St. Louis might have gotten a second dot. And certainly Ndakaru got Islas Malvinas, and so was able to build a second army here. And this ruins a lot of what I'm thinking, because the whole idea of me trying to get into Mali at some point is that even if they take Timbuktu and whatever, my army in Mali can move towards this cluster, and we can have armies pushing down here. I can support the fleets into places like Niani. I can move to Ndakaru. I can move to Jacob Fort. Suddenly there's 2 armies here, and it makes it really hard for me to do anything. And I was looking at, well, my game's kind of screwed here. I'm going to try and mess with Western Death Star. I've done the war. I've been at odds with Taznica all game. Let's see how this goes. There's a whole lot of people enabling Taznica, so let's see if I can do something. It should be stated I was trying hard to get Arguin to stab here, and I think they were considering it. And I don't know at what stage they were considering stabbing Western Death Star, but I was trying hard, because Arguin was someone, again, I'd had really good press with in the past. I thought maybe Arguin would be someone that might stab. Okay, let's keep going. This is the situation here after builds. Let's look at the clean board before builds. One very important thing happens here, which is that TCL declare war on guinea pigs. And they come straight out and say, nah, we're going to do this. We're going to take Banda, e.g. you can take Azande, and we're going to move up. We're going to take Mandara. We're going to take Fernando Po. And people are going to help us. And I went to EG and I said, hey, remember that 3-way pact? Are you guys going to work with us? Are you guys going to attack TCL, who is the biggest alliance in Africa? They are massive. They've just taken Madagascar all for themselves. They've got Banyoro now, they've got Baidoa, they could be moving on Mogadishu. You guys need to really watch out for this. And EG says, we will work with you if you can get Ligma to side with us against the Butlerians. And the Butlerians are an alliance that's kind of over in this area. It's got people like Trebizond and Abbassad and Baghdad and a few of these people, I think Tbilisi and EG were worried about these guys and they wanted Ligma to work with them against them. And I said, yeah, Ligma have said that my survival is one of the most important things to them. So I said, I'm sure they will do this. I go to sleep, and overnight, Warsangali talks to the Don, and the Don says, no, we're not going to do that. And I'm thinking, fucking hell. And so EG decide not to uphold the pact, and they say, we're not going to attack TCL here. And so TCL declare war on us, and they get away with it in press. And we're all thinking, okay, we're all completely boned here. This is not going to look good. Everyone's going to be moving in here. Meme's got no reason not to attack me. He's going to attack Poe. All our armies are going to disappear. Yes, we could keep going, but things don't look great. And, I mean, Mamluks has let me down time and time and time again. And I think this whole few phases goes completely differently if Mamluks helps me out in Timbuktu. But Mamluks was never a reliable player, and I probably shouldn't have put so much faith in them to help me. I also probably shouldn't have put so much faith in them to disrupt me. And there's a world where me joining Western Death Star is my best play, that I can get into House Estates and give Timbuktu back and be on 2 and then maybe do something with me. Like, there's scope for things to happen in the game with that. I think I'm right not to trust Tasnica, and certainly I love that I was able to do this. And honestly, everything that happened in this game, being able to do this and have Wagadugu misbuilt, it's just the cherry on top of everything. And regardless of the fact that my game's been ruined by post-stab, this is just a beautiful moment. So I'm happy this has happened. But with TCL declaring war on GP, people try and cut deals. And WDS offers to me and says, well, we can't trust you until you do something on the map. But if you do something on the map that is moving away from us, then we can consider working with you again in the future. And I put in my orders, which is this before moves? Or, yeah, that's moves. I put in my orders to support myself into Agadez, because this situation is really, really tricky for me to try and bounce and keep Timbuktu, because I can be supported into Timbuktu here. Tasman can be supported into Timbuktu here, and I am really worried about Meme walking into Agadez. And my worry here is that if I do a bounce in Agadez with Meme from, say, Timbuktu, because I think Meme's going to walk in, that if Timbuktu is supported into, that Timbuktu's army, it would get blown up because it can't retreat to Agadez, and there's a chance that Hogar is walked into again by Mamluks. I mean, I keep asking Mamluks, like, hey, you're going to come and help me out? I've got to grasp onto anything at this stage because I don't trust these guys. I don't really trust Meme. Yes, Meme was in my alliance, but Meme has done a lot of these tell no one, walk into dot kind of stabs. And I have my orders in, and I don't try and bounce in Agadez. I decide Busa is going to support Timbuktu into Agadez. Tasnik is going to get into Timbuktu. I'm going to make amends with Western Death Star, and I'm going to try and survive. And I thought, yeah, if I do this, there's a world where I can support myself into House Estates, and I can be on 2 here and then try and make a living for myself. And I think it was about half an hour before deadline, I'd been yapping in chat and we were all joking and whatever, and Tasnica made a comment to the effect of, yeah, Vlad's been very entertaining in chat. If he continues being entertaining, then maybe we'll leave him alive on 1 dot as Western Death Star's jester. And I was like, this is so fucking patronizing. Like, am I really that desperate for survival that I'm going to turn around against the people I've attacked and try and scrape and claw for 1 dot? I thought, yeah, maybe I'm going to be able to get myself to 2 dots and make a living. And Tasmic saying, yeah, maybe we'll leave him alive on 1. I'm thinking, oh my god, like, that's not the kind of game I want. I'm going to be miserable for the last 3-4 years of the game if I'm just sitting there on 1 dot doing essentially nothing. And so I think if I've got any honor here, I'm going to stick to what I said. And I decide to support myself into Mali. And I think it's a spring phase. Maybe Meme's not going to walk in. Maybe he's going to try and do this in the fall, where he knows that he can walk in and do it in the dead of night. And I'm thinking maybe Cairo's going to move back. I know, call me a fool for assuming Cairo's going to do anything. But they'd run out of subs. They didn't have anyone to replace people who were NMRing at this stage. So Cairo's still in here. Who the fuck knows what's going to happen? I think Ligma were trying to kill Cairo at some point. I don't really care. And so I decide I'm going to support myself into Mali, and it's going to look good for me, and maybe I can mess around here. But these two armies here make me messing around and surviving by running to these dots really impossible. So I support myself into Mali. Red alert, Meme walks straight into Agadez. And yep, I support myself into Mali, and it does work. Poe gets bounced out of Ouagadougou, which is a bit of a shame, but it was a smart move by Wag. I think Wag was always going to do that. Poe can guaranteed take Ouagadougou. Ben NMRs. Gold Coast gets taken. Lopez Bay gets entered, like I was really worried about. Poe tries something down here. But we're all kind of fucked here. But really importantly for me is that Meme walks into Agadez. And Tasnica walks into Timbuktu. And I can't get out of Dodge because one of my plans, if I got down to one dot, was to join Ligma and take refuge. And I was saying to the Don, this guy's NMRing, he's directly the reason I am dying in this game. If I move up to Tripoli, will you keep me alive in Tripoli? Will Ligma give me this dot from Mamluks? And the Don said, yeah, I think if that can happen, we can try and make that work. But I'm out of Timbuktu, I'm out of Agadez, my 2 units are in Mali and Busa. It's not looking good for me to get to Tripoli, and Meme stabbing me. I have no way of staying on 2 dots here because Mali can be force taken. St. Louis moves to Tukalor, Theo moves to Ndakaru, and of course, in Western Death Star plans, it just so happens that that Mali is taken back by Tasnica. Of course, I think, is the idea here. And suddenly... No, sorry, it's Ouagadougou who takes it. It's not St. Louis, of course, who, could have got it, but no, Ouagadougou gets supported back because they're losing Ouagadougou. So, yeah, Tasnica's the one who gets to 2 again, and it's not great. Let's look at the clean map after these moves. And this is really not a good spot for me. And, of course, I can't get up to Tripoli this way, and... I've made my bed here, and I've said to Western Death Star, I'm going to attack you guys until the game's fucking over here. And I'm thinking, okay, I need to get the fuck out of Dodge, and Ligma are my only real friends here. Yes, I'm friends with Fernando Poe, but I don't really trust Poe to keep me alive at his expense. My best friends are Ligma, and I'm thinking, how can I get to Tripoli? My number one plan here is that I want to take Timbuktu. I want to support Mali into Timbuktu and do something here, get through, and Timbuktu is a really good route for me to get to Tripoli. Meme and Tasnica know each other pretty well, and they support each other here despite not being in the same alliance. And I was trying to talk to EG and say, hey, your guy just stabbed me, can you force him to help me against Tasnica? And they said, no, we're not going to do that. All sorts of dot swaps are going over here, and EG's not really helping me here, and I'm desperately trying to say to Meme, like, hey, Tasnica's not someone you can trust on your border. Why don't you let me into Timbuktu in this? And Meme was saying, well, I think I trust Tasnica a bit more than I trust you because I just stabbed you. And you know what? That's kind of fair enough. So all these supports are going on here. I'm not going to be able to get into Timbuktu. And so the plan that is made is that I say I want to get to Tripoli, I just want to get through to Ligma. Because I'm saying the reason I'm going to Timbuktu is not to kill Tasnica, it's not to do this, it's all to get to Tripoli. And Meme makes a very interesting proposal at this point, and he says, well, I'll let you get to Tripoli, but you'll have to go around the long way. Which means this way. Because these impassable tiles you can't move to. Sorry if I haven't explained that yet, but you can't move to these tiles, the Saharan Desert tiles. So instead of going up through either Agadez or Timbuktu, because Meme's not happy with me going to Agadez, and also, I mean, Tasnica can just bounce me out and kill me, so it's not looking great for me either. Meme says, well, I'll support you into House Estates, and you can go this way to Tripoli and get home. to Ligma. Because at this stage, right after this stab happens, I officially join Ligma. And I say to the Don, you guys are my best bet for survival. I'm leaving guinea pigs. Fernando Po gives me his blessing to leave, and I officially join Ligma. So I'm putting a whole lot of pressure on here because the deal meme is part of EG, and the deal that EG and Ligma make is that Ligma will give EG Cairo, because Mamluks is dying, the Don has decided, and they will give EG Cairo if EG don't kill me. So EG do convince Meme, no, don't kill Vlad. And the Don in particular is going to Meme and saying, don't kill Vlad, or else you're going to suffer. And I'm going to use all my influence. There isn't really a lot the Don can do, but I mean, there's still Ligma people up here. They can do some shit. But anyway, this plan is born, and so the first step of the plan is to get me into House Estates. And this is where the after action report is going to start getting a lot quicker from me, because my chances of doing anything like getting to 2 dots again is kind of slim. So very much we're going to be talking about what I do for the rest of the game. And we'll look at the next move phase. And I get supported into Hausa. And Meme supports Timbuktu, and I get dislodged from Mali. Wag gets supported back in, of course, because Tasnica, God forbid Tasnica lose a dot. And Po takes Ouagadougou, I get dislodged from Mali. One of the things I was kind of thinking of if all these armies weren't here was, yeah, I'll get supported into Hausa, I'll live in Hausa, but then I'll secretly retreat to Fulani and try and move here. But if you look at where all the dots are, retreating to Fulani and trying to take these dots doesn't work. These two armies can come together and they can kill me. So it's not a plan that works. And Sao Tome gets taken, so Ben's going to be down to 1 dot. It's not looking good for Ben at this stage. Banda gets taken. Azande survives for now, so Ixis isn't dead. But, oh, yeah, Cairo finally fucking moves, but still doesn't move towards me. Just fuck that. Like, Cairo dies. So, EG take Cairo as part of the deal, and Tunis takes Tripoli. So, Cairo dies. So, there's kind of this agreement that I'm going to go to Tripoli, and I'm going to go to Hausa. The other thing I was looking at was maybe surviving in Benin, talking to Fernando Po and saying, well, I'll keep working with you, but I'd like to live and die on 1 dot in my home center and try and survive the game. I didn't love it because there's a lot of people that want us dead. There's some shit happening where B-sticks are now starting to look at coming over to Africa. TCL, they've got fleets that are coming up. Soyo gets into Mandan, I think. And Benguela takes Sao Tome. So things really are not looking good for us surviving here. So I think my best plan is to go to Tripoli. And so begins the trip to Tripoli, the long way to Tripperary, the road trip. There are a few different names going around about this. And there's, just for context, when this move happened, there were 7 moves left in the game. And the planned trip was to go Busa to House Estates, 1. House Estates to Mandara, 2. Mandara to Darfur, 3. And that's a fall turn, so I take Darfur, Meme moves to House Estates. So I live on 1 dot. The next year, I move to Wadai or to Hawara, and then to Zagawa. And Zagawa is not a dot, and with 1 year left, that would be a full turn. I would have to be in Zagawa and trust that no one takes Darfur. So it's really fucking precarious. And then in the last year, it's Zagawa to Jalo or Hogar, and then into Tripoli for the last year. So it's a very precarious trip, but my game doesn't have a lot of meaning anymore, and I think this is a bit, it's a Captain Meme related bit. People like Meme, people, I think, like me in Africa. So if I say, well, I'm not going to be involved in any scheming anymore, I'm not going to be doing any stabbing, you don't have to worry about me. All my energy is on going to Tripoli, and also Ligma is supporting it, and you don't want to piss off Ligma. So I figure the more I talk about this in press, the more I make this a joke, the more people will be invested in seeing it succeed. And this starts working because EG is really heavily invested in my trip working, particularly because it got them Cairo, and Debre Bihan and Hawara here are really strongly in support of my trip to Tripoli and me surviving. So I think this is one of the reasons Meme didn't kill me. I think Meme likes the bit. I don't know if Meme was ever properly planning on stabbing me at this point, but I get into House of States, and that's the first step of it. So let's keep moving through, and we'll talk about my trip. Here's the next move phase, and Meme supports me into Mandara. This is agreed with Poe. I think Poe knows he's losing Mandara, so he agrees, well, I'll let Vlad go through it, because that way all this stuff can happen. Meme leaves Agadez open against Timbuktu, and yeah, this is another one we need to talk about right here. There was talk between Tasnica and Wagadugu about doing something to Poe, and Tasnica said in press that he was going to gunboat his moves. And if you look at this, Tasnica supports himself into Mali, and Tasnica has claimed in post-game chat that this was agreed. Wagadugu, in response, did not say it was agreed, and Wagadugu didn't say it was entirely not agreed, because technically the press was that Tasnica could gunboat his moves, and Tasnica tried to argue, oh yeah, because this way you can do a retreat somewhere that'll help us or something, but Tasnica's just killing Wagadugu here. Like, this is really, really obviously just a stat. And people just let him get away with it, and this is exactly why I supported Wagadugu into Mali to get Tasnica down to 1 dot again. This is exactly why I thought I'm not going to trust these guys and join Western Death Star, because Tasnica's going to pull some bullshit like this. And I mean, it's clearly very good play by Tasnica. Tasnica's a very gifted player at the game, and in manipulating people into letting him do this, I thought, like, there's no fucking way everyone's just letting this happen. Like, it's so obviously a stab. But yeah, I think I'm validated in not trusting Western Death Star not to stab me. I obviously did. I let Meme stab me, but I think I've explained my reasons why I did the moves I did decently enough, and it's not because I didn't see it coming. I absolutely saw Meme stab coming. I just didn't know if it would be in spring. So Meme did a good job doing the stab in spring. Tasnica kills Wagadugu, and it's quite sad to me that Wagadugu's reward for defending against me. I really enjoyed the tactical battle against Tasnica and Wagadugu. It was one of the most enjoyable parts of the game for me, was actually just engaging in pure diplomacy. It wasn't about the press, it was about the tactics. And both of them are good tactical players, and I enjoyed the fight. I particularly enjoyed the great move I was able to do, but I was sad because they won. Like, I got stabbed, and I had to turn around, and I had to go, yeah, you guys take my dots. I'm surrendering to you guys. And Wagadugu's reward for defending against me was death. Like, Tasnica just stabbed him. And yes, it's a spring phase, and yeah, I've got into Mandara here, but Wagadugu decides, I think, to disband. Where is it? Yeah, he decides to retreat into an occupied province and disband. So, very, very sad that this happened, but I mean, I can't blame Tasnica. The people I have an issue with are the rest of Western Death Star for not giving a shit. Like, Timbuktu should have seen that. I mean, yeah. I thought Timbuktu was going to be next. I thought Tasnica was going to start stabbing a bunch of people, and I was saying, yeah, Tasnica's going to stab Agadez, he's going to stab Niani, he's going to stab Wagadugu, he's going to stab Idil, and he's going to end the game on like 7 or 8 dots or something. And I was pointing this out in chat, even though I had no diplomatic reason to be calling out Tasnica at this point. I just have this bad habit of calling bullshit when I see bullshit. So I've been taking an anti-Tasnica line all game, so why should I stop now? Like, he can't actually do anything to kill me. I mean, technically he can go and interview with Tripoli or something, but he's got other stuff to worry about. He's not going to focus on killing me, so I just keep calling him out, and I'm like, yeah, you just killed Wagadugu. Like, come on. Yeah, let's keep going. This is, here's the moves here, and I do get into Darfur. And I wasn't all that worried that Meme was going to kill me here, because Meme was being promised Azande. And Meme doesn't have all that much reason not to take Azande. As Meme is going +1 here, yep, he gives Darfur up, but he's taking House Estates off me, and he's getting into Azande as part of this agreed swap where TCL get Mandara, and Ixus dies here, which is sad. Ixus was a lovely player, lovely, loyal guinea pig, and dies. So I get into Darfur, Meme doesn't stop my stab. Couple of important things to note here, and the most important one for me is that Swiliu tries to stab. And Yeah. Tries to move to Gondar, tries to move to Debre Birhan. And Mercuria reads him like a book and blocks the stab. So it's a failed stab from Swiliu. And here I start thinking, because I'm really worried that the trip to Tripoli is going to get interrupted, the pilgrimage is going to be fucked up, and I'm going to die, and I'm not going to survive the game. At this point, I get in here, there's 2 years to go, so 4 movement phases to go. And I think, oh, Swiliu's just stabbed EG. I can use this to my advantage and try and replace Swiliu and EG with me. I'm thinking I might be able to get myself the Hawara dot and survive here because Swiliu just did a failed stab. If it was a successful stab, I would have been trying the opposite. I'd be saying, hey, Swiliu, I'm going to join your team and I'm going to start attacking people with you. But because the stab failed, I'm trying to talk to Debre Birhan. I'm trying to talk to Mercuria and say, well, maybe you should let me into Hawara. But at the same time, I don't really want to do this because I'm meant to be going to Tripoli. So if I talk too much about killing Swiliu, EG is going to say, well, fuck you, Vlad, we're just going to kill you. So I'm trying to be a bit cautious about it. But at this stage, let's get to the map after builds. Sorry, before builds. But yeah, this is a good map to look at because I'm sitting here evaluating my options. And I'm thinking, well, if I move to Wadai, as I've said, in the spring, that I've got a couple of options for fall. Well, 4 options really. One of them is to move to Kanembornu, try to stab me. One of them is to move to Hawara and try to stab Swiliu. One of them is to go back to Darfur and bounce out whoever's walking, anyone who tries to walk into Darfur, and that's if I'm guessing someone's trying to kill me. And the other one is to move to Zagawa and continue the trip. And I'm not really trusting that I'm going to be able to get into Tripoli because Tunis is not someone I've trusted all that much this game. I really don't trust Meme not to kill me in Darfur, and particularly because when we get to builds, one of the issues with my plans is that Meme gets a build, and I just forgot about this. So suddenly there's an army in Kanembornu. There's no way I'm going to be able to stab Kanembornu. So I start thinking, well, I've got to move to Hawara here and try and survive in Hawara, and I'm not going to be able to get to Tripoli if I go to Hawara, but maybe I can get to Cairo. And so I move into Hawara, is my planned move. Let's go to that bit because that matters here. We get a nice little bounce over Darfur here because Swiliu's apologizing to everyone and saying, yeah, I'm going to move out. And Swiliu takes Cairo and gives up, I think it's Aden that he ends up giving up. But yeah, Swiliu moves to Cairo to try and defend it because look at these moves from Ligma and from Trebizond. They're all moving down towards Cairo. And because EG, I think Swiliu made the mistake of saying, well, let's get a fleet into Cairo so that we can move out into the Mediterranean. And Ligma saw this and said, this is like the Red Oak situation all over again. They look at this and they say, well, we're going to move to defend against that. And so Tunis moves in. Trebizond is a Butlerian, but they're still working with Ligma at this stage. And yeah, so I get into Hawara. Let's look at the clean map after retreats. I'm in Hawara here. And something happens in press during this stage, and Mercuria had been trying to say, well, maybe we kill Swiliu. Maybe we take Aden, we take Mecca, Vlad can take Hawara, and we'll just kill Swiliu because he's tried to stab me and all of this. No one else in EG really pays attention. Particularly Wasangali wants me dead because Trebizond goes to Aragon here. And it should be noted that the Don at this point no longer has much influence in Ligma. The Don has lost Sardinia, has given it up to Corse. The Don is living on 1 dot here in Marrakech, but the fleet is in the Ligurian Sea up here. The Don was my big supporter, and Aragon, we got on well, but Aragon was not supporting me as much as the Don was. And Trebizond says, hey, Ligma, if you guys support me into Cairo, we, and Butlerians control a fair amount of area at this time, will join Ligma in attacking France. And France controlled a lot of northern Europe at this stage. And so Aragon says, yep, okay, Cairo's yours. And instantly EG's like, what the fuck? Ligma, we made a deal with you. The deal was that we get Cairo and we don't kill Vlad. So Wasangali, who's been anti-Vlad all game, starts saying, okay, Vlad, we're going to kill you. And I'm like, holy fucking shit. And I start tagging Aragon. I start tagging the Don. And I'm saying, guys, come on. You guys made a deal to keep me alive. I am in the Ligma Alliance at this stage. If you do this, I will die. And I'm thinking, I think Ligma, there's no way they're actually going to not support Trebizondin, because they would much rather Butlerians join them in the war against France than that they keep me alive on one dot. I don't actually really matter to them. It's only really the Don who is invested in keeping me alive. So I'm really worried I'm going to die here. But I decide I'm going to try as hard and press as possible to convince EG that I am trying. And because I'm thinking, well, even if it doesn't work, EG will see how hard I'm trying to work for their alliance, and maybe they'll think, well, we can trust this guy more than we can trust Swiliu, more than we can trust Hawara. And maybe I'll be left alive in Hawara and survive. Maybe I'll even be left alive in 2 dots because they don't trust me or something. Like, I'm trying whatever I can. Warsangal is pretty anti-me. Debre Bihan is pretty pro-me. And so there's a few things going on. But one of the issues for me is that the 2 really pro-Vlad players in EG were Debre Bihan and Hawara. And the person I'm thinking I might be able to replace is Hawara, who's one of the people I get on well with. So it's a tricky situation here. Wasangali doesn't love me. And what I say is, okay, well, I'm not going to go to Tripoli anymore. And the arrangement Ligma and Trebizond reach is, okay, well, we'll support you into Cairo now, but Cairo will go to Vlad eventually. And so this is really nice for me because I don't have to move to Tripoli anymore, which means I don't have to move out of Hawara right now. And so I say to EG, well, I'll support Swilian into Darfur, which means that I'll take Hawara, but I'll just live on the 1 dot in Hawara, and then I'll move to Cairo in the last year. And you guys are losing Cairo anyway, so how about it be me that takes it? And that'll be kind of a pilgrimage for me, and I'll be getting home to the Mediterranean, which is Ligma territory, and I'm a Ligma member, so that'll be a nice kind of, end to my hero's journey. And also, Cairo is the player that fucked me over by, first of all, moving away from Hogar, and then NMRing 2 turns in a row. And so the joke became that I'm going to go to Cairo and I'm going to piss on the Pharaoh's grave. And I think it's a good bit. I don't have much ill will towards Mamluks. I mean, things happen. People do whatever they do. It's all a game at the end of the day. But it became a funny bit that I was going to go and punish him for what happened. And so the agreement is I'll support Swiliu into Darfur and go to Cairo instead. And one of the reasons I really like this is because if I tried to continue on to Tripoli, I think Meme's probably going to kill me. Like, yeah, Meme's going to walk into Mandara as there's a dot trade going on where I think it was Mpemba who was going to take Azande, and Meme would be supported into Mandara. And TCL's going to keep moving against Poe over here. There's stuff going on. Poe's in Sao Tome, haha, how funny. But yeah, I think supporting Swiliu into Darfur means that Meme can't physically stab, and that's really nice. So this is a plan that keeps me alive. I was looking at a few different plans. One of them was to try and bounce Swiliu out of Darfur and live on 2, but I'm pretty sure if that happens that I get killed, because Trebizond had kind of been saying, well, if you stab EG, I'll come down and support you. I don't know if Trebizond's actually going to do that. There's more dots here. Trebizond's working with Abbasid, who's in Arabia here. I don't know if Trebizond actually supports me, so and I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe I'm going to do this stab, but I'd be relying on a lot of things. And it also doesn't work if Meme supports Swiliu into Darfur. And before I go to bed before the deadline, I write in my void and I say, if Meme states in public chat that he's going to support Swiliu to Darfur, then there's no stab for me. And if he doesn't state it, then maybe I'll stab, but maybe I won't. Anyway, I wake up and Meme has stated in chat that he's supporting Swiliu to Darfur. So there's nothing for me to do but support Swiliu to Darfur. And a few people were asking, Vlad, I'm wondering if you tried to do any funny stabs, any funny bounces. And I was wondering it, but the way press went, I thought, well, no, there's no reason for me to do it. And let's go to moves because, yeah, Meme supports him in, I support him in. So I live on the 1 dot here. Trebizond does indeed take Cairo. And Makuria moves to Sana here. Yeah, Banda takes Azande, not Mpemba, but there's a couple of bouncy things going along here. But yeah, Meme gets into Mandara, Swilyu gets into Darfur, Banda gets into Azande, dots are being taken here, Cormantin falls, dot Corm, the famous meme. Yeah, once again, Marley's trying to grow more. I'm really happy to see Poe defend himself rather than give up the dot. The whole time, Tasmika was trying to take Poe's dots and say to Poe, I think your best option for survival here is to give me your dots. And I mean, everyone, particularly me and Wien Hayek, were saying, Wien Hayek's gotten really big here, by the way. We should have a look at the scoreboard here. Wien Hayek is coming second. Uni, who fed one player and threw the entire game to Masuli Patnam. Like, Masuli Patnam was always going to win. There was no real contest. Wien Hayek was doing pretty well, though. And me and Wien had made up by this point. We were getting on quite well, and we were spending a lot of our energy in just pot stirring the shit out of Tasmika. And Tasmika kept doing stuff like saying, just give me your dots, it's what's best for everyone. And no, so Poe didn't do this, and I was quite happy to see Poe, still live on 2 dots here and have 2 units at the end. Sorry, 3 dots coming into the final year, and I thought there's a chance that Ben survives, because Ben is the player I really don't want to see die. Ben had kind of checked out of the game, but I didn't want to see Ben die. Ben was my closest ally in this game. Anyway, so we'll go to the clean map, and I'm in Hawara now, which is nice, and I can go to Cairo in the last year. So let's see how that goes. Yeah, there's not a lot for me to talk about for a little bit. There's some builds and stuff that happen. Let's go to the moves. So I moved to Zagawa. So I was a little bit worried about Trebizond bouncing me and stopping me from moving up to Cairo, because then I would just be dead, because EG would take Hawara and I would die. So I asked EG to dislodge me. And so that if I do get bounced, I can retreat to the other one, because both Beja and Zagawa are adjacent to Cairo, and I can kind of rely on Ligma to support me into Cairo at the end of the day, which means that if Trebizond tries to stop stuff, it's not going to happen. Trebizond doesn't bounce me, which is really lovely. I didn't say where I was going either, so that kind of helped. I get into Zagawa, and I'm next to Cairo, so I'm ready to go. Swilyu gets into Hawara. I was kind of looking at maybe, bouncing someone out of Hawara in the last turn if they tried to move in fall, but Makuria's move to Sanar really stopped that from happening. Bounce over Darfur happens here to keep people all from stabbing people. There's a whole lot of mutual bounces here. Once again, Poe doesn't lose Wagadugu, which is really nice, because people don't help him, and I think there was some talk about people tapping not say, but it doesn't happen. Congo, who was one of my friends early in the game, takes Benin, and I welcome him in, because Congo, good friend of mine from the start of the game, and I say, I hope you enjoy your stay in Benin. And I'm kind of happy that Benin doesn't end the game in the hands of the guy who stabbed me, so I'm pretty happy that this has happened. Anyway, I move into Zagawa here, Swilyu moves into Hawara, and the idea is that Tunis will support me into Cairo at the end of the game, and that Trebizond's not going to support himself, and Trebizond's going to do some other stuff. Again, I think Trebizond was really just supporting the bit by this stage, so I thought, I'm going to get into Cairo, I'm going to end the game in Cairo, I'm going to be able to piss on the Pharaoh's grave. It's going to look pretty good, so I'm pretty happy about all this. Let's look at the map before moves. Something is agreed before this phase, which is because of Banda sitting here in Azande, Meme and Swilyu decide, well, they're going to bounce over Darfur. And a lot of Meme's units, people were worried about Meme, moving into Darfur and stabbing or something. So Swilyu wanted to have some kind of bounce there to make sure Meme couldn't just walk in. A lot of Meme's units are being tied down by TCL and by Tasmika, because Meme kind of wants to cover Agadez and do some stuff. There's meant to be this stab going on here, and I'm moving to Cairo. I want Tunis to support me in. It's all looking good. I also asked Michele to support me in, but Michele's got some other stuff going on here with Sana and stuff. And fully, I go to bed and I think, well, I've put my order in. Nothing really matters. Let's get to the deadline and see what happens. And I wake up at 7:15, and for context, the deadline was at 7. And there was a 30-minute extension. And I wake up at 7:15 to see whether I've gotten into Cairo. And there's an extension, so the orders haven't happened yet. And I log on, and a few people are talking about some things, and Meme's kind of joking. At this stage, Meme and Hawara had reformed LOC, which was the Central African Alliance from the start of the game. And so I I kind of jokingly said to Meme, because there was this bounce going, Meme was saying that he thought that Banda was going to support Swiliu into Darfur. And I kind of joke, which would, mean that I would keep a dot and Banda would just be trolling Swiliu a little bit, which would have been a funny move to make. But Banda was saying in press, no, I've got other stuff I need to be doing. Sorry, I'm not going to be doing anything like this. But I say to Meme in like the 10 minutes before the deadline, hey, would you consider maybe not bouncing with Swiliu in Darfur? And fully, this is overtime. Like, the deadlines were already meant to have happened. I was meant to have already missed it. And Meme says to me, well, only if you join Locke, I'll do it. And so immediately I changed my nickname to be Locke Vlad. And so Meme says, oh shit, I've got to do it now. And let's go to the final move of the game. Okay, first thing to notice was that everyone was asked to tap Kazan. There was a nice little circle going on here from the Tbilisi player. Sorry, my mouse was going the wrong direction, but people all over the map ordered themselves to Kazan. This was one of the best things that happened this game, was this whole last year of the play thing. But let's look at this. Meme, in fact, did not bounce with Swiliu, which means that Swiliu walks out of Hawara. Tunis did indeed support me into Cairo. So, I end the game on 2 dots, and I have no idea how the fuck that happened. I mean, if you asked me when I'd been stabbed, I was in Mali and Busa, whether I was going to survive the game, I would have said no. And I end the game, I complete my trip. It's not to Tripoli, but it's to Cairo. So I get to piss on the Pharaoh's grave. And I also get Hawara, which I just find really funny that Meme did this in the last year. Because there was no way Meme could actually stab Darfur for himself. He had a whole lot of stuff tied down here. Unfortunately, Ben dies in Great Ardra. But Poe ends the game on 2 dots, which is really nice. Survives in Cormantin and Ouagadougou, and blows up the fleet that's in Cormantin. So Poe gets to survive. Things happen. I think Bellum had come over here and had taken Niani, and this is Wien Hayek's army, I think, in Mandan, who helped this happen. So there are a few fun things happening in West Africa. It wasn't really my area, though, so I'm not the best person to comment on it all. So this is the screen at the end of the game, and I have survived, and I have lived on 2 dots, and I have joined Locke, which was the alliance that I tried to attack in the first year of the game. And suddenly I have survived as one of 3 members in an alliance, and one of the other members of that alliance is a person I just stabbed. So Swiliu ends on 1 dot, and Swiliu was quite sad. And I feel bad for Swiliu, because Swiliu wanted to end with his home center. And that didn't happen because Meme and I fucked with him. So I end the game at 2 dots. I end the game as a member of Locke. And yeah, it was a fun end to the game, because my game kind of was done the second Meme stabbed me in Agadez. Yeah, I guess I should kind of sum up my thoughts about the game. So I had an absolute blast playing the game. I thought Africa was a really interesting continent politically, and I think that early on, the guinea pigs kind of enforced their will on the continent and got a lot more than they should have got. We were able to get both Darfur and Mandara from Locke when they collapsed. We were able to just force ourselves in there. We were able to move towards Pirate Pali, take Azande, get Banda and Bunyoro in dot swaps. We were going quite well. I also love that we were able to make ground in South America. And yeah, we got kicked out at the end of it, but I mean, Bellum was kind of part of our team for a bit, so there's an honorary kind of African remnant over there. But the fact that we were able to pull off Western Drift was just, you look at a global chaos game and you think, what would be a funny thing to happen? And no one predicted, Africa's going to immediately attack South America at the start of the game. So that was really fun that we were able to do that. I also thought we by far got the better end of the deal. Like, it was us and Western Death Star attacking South America, but we were the ones getting the dots, and Western Death Star, sorry, all the close terms are so confusing. They got dots over there, but we got more, and we easily got the better end of the deal in South America. We also were growing more in Africa than Western Death Star were. So I'm proud of how guinea pigs played the early game. I think a lot of really good plays happened, and I really, really think what if about the stab. So I want to go back to that map. and look at this stab. I also really think the stab in spring would have been so nice, and we would have had Mali guaranteed. And I really saw Western Death Star crumbling because they hadn't got their builds out. They weren't able to get these armies in here yet. And if we get a really quick fire stab off on them, they're absolutely fucked, and we can make gains in South America. I don't blame Fernando Po for doing this stab, because if we come and look at the scoreboard at the end of the game, Fernando Po's on the front page, and I know not all these points are exactly correct, but Fernando Po's up there and is one of the highest nations in Africa. I think Benguela was the highest point scorer, Fernando Po was second, and I think maybe Luba, who stabbed Benguela in the last move of the game. Luba did some stabs, took Pango. Luba also stabbed Banda in Zanzibar. So Luba ended the game on 6, but the highest scorer in Africa was Benguela. Fernando Po's stab, yes, they only survived the game on 2 dots, but I mean, you can't really argue with results. So I don't blame Fernando Po for doing the stab, but I really do wonder what would have happened if the guinea pigs had stayed together. And because we got a great stab off on Western Death Star, Meme also got Hawara in that stab, and Hawara was not EG's favourite member either, because Hawara had been the one to do the stab. Hawara kept trying to do stuff like attack Cairo and all this stuff, so I think this would have been a great position for us, because, Ixis just got into Bunyoro. We're looking good against TCL as well, because Ixis is a trustworthy, honourable player who didn't do a stab, so TCL don't have much casus belli to go after Ixis after we attack Western Death Star. And TCL must be happy. You know, they're attacking Uni, they're taking Madagascar, they're doing shit down here. They'd be happy that we're not attacking them. And so I think there's a real world where GP can take over North Africa and TCL can do something here. Maybe we end up attacking EG with TCL. TCL did very well this game. GP obviously crumbled after Poe's stab. I thought it was cool that GP reformed. I think there was some interesting play in the middle of the game. My favourite move of the game was definitely this one here, where I supported Ouagadougou into Mali. I just thought this was such a beautiful move where I did a thing that didn't really benefit me personally, but then it did benefit me personally because Ouagadougou fucked up the build here by building here. So this was just my favourite sequence of the entire game. I think I did a lot in this game. Obviously, it didn't end out the way I would have liked, but also I survived the game, and the game was full of, I think, 345 people in the game, and about 85 of them survived the game. And I think I'm in the top 60 for points or something at the end of the game. I know the points aren't all exactly correct because of issues with the bot, but yeah, I'm happy with how my game went. Yes, it could have gone better, but also it could have gone a lot worse. Like, I was in a Cebu like at the start of the game, and I could have easily have died in the first year of the game. I got to play with some really fun people. I think I had some really fun fights against Tasnica and Ouagadougou. I had some good laughs with Captain Meme. Ardra, Poe, and Sayotome, my original guys, loved playing with them. And I know Poe stabbed me, but, like, again, I can't blame him. Ardra was a great laugh. Ben and I think we did really good work together, and I loved playing the game with Ben. And yeah, I liked playing the game with Tim. I liked playing the game with Meme. I liked playing the game with Ixis. Ixis was one. I felt bad that we kept giving up Ixis's dots for him, but it was our way of, appeasement. It was kind of, giving the Germans Czechoslovakia at the start of World War II. Was giving up some of Ixis's dots here to TCL, because of course TCL attacked us anyway, but it slowed things down for those of us here who weren't Ixis. I really loved playing with them. I want to say thank you to Flair for running the game. Flair was the amazing GM of this game who ran everything. I also want to thank all of the mods and the angels who did a lot of work for this game. And in particular, I want to thank Aqua, who was the Angel of Africa. And I had a lot of good chats with Aqua throughout the game. Aqua was an absolute legend and looked after everything really well in Africa. I had a great time playing this game. There were people in all the other alliances that I really loved. I loved playing with Ouagadougou. I loved playing with Cormantin. I loved playing with Arguin, with Tasnica. I loved playing with Dyer here in Debrebiahan was a great laugh. Swiliu was great fun to play with. Most of TCL, honestly, I loved playing with my bands early. Benguela and I, it was tense at times, but we had really good chats in this game. Even Cape Koe was great fun. Banda, it was an absolute fucking laugh. Even though Banda stabbed us, I still loved the way she played the game and had a ball. To my Ligma friends, the Don, thank you for supporting me as much as you did. Aragon, sure, you did some as well. But I survived. So, yay. Thank you to all of them. And this is the first kind of video like this I've made. So I hope it's not been all that long. I think it's about 4.5 hours in total, this summary. So I spent far too many hours of my life thinking about this game. But I had a real blast doing this. I'm going to be taking a decent break from diplomacy before playing anything again. But it's been a really, really unique experience. I haven't experienced anything quite like it. And I'm really glad I took part in this game and got to be involved in what I think the biggest game of diplomacy ever. So this was really cool. Thanks for watching. There's more information in my void if you want to see it. Cheers.